President Donald Trump has rolled out his health care affordability plan, which he says aims to lower health care costs for Americans. And of course, the announcement comes as affordability has been a key issue for millions in the U.S., and the White House is calling on Congress to get behind his plan. Well, joining me now is Washington Standard reporter Sarah Holliday, who's been following today's stories. Sarah, let's start with this one. Can you break down for us what's in this new plan from the president?
Thank you, Jody. President Trump says that the new health care plan aims to lower insurance premiums and the cost of drugs. He said it would also maximize transparency of prices and hold insurance companies accountable. The plan also calls for ending taxpayer-funded subsidy payments to insurance companies.
We're calling it the Great Healthcare Plan. Instead of putting the needs of big corporations and special interests first, our plan finally puts you first and puts more money in your pocket. The government is going to pay the money directly to you. It goes to you, and then you take the money and buy your own health care. Nobody's ever heard of that before, and that's the way it is.
Jody, critics claim the proposal is not complete and could raise insurance rates for people with pre-existing conditions. When asked about that in a press conference yesterday, here's what White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt had to say.
The president's plan that he outlined today will have no impact on individuals in this country with pre-existing conditions. Obviously, that's a continued conversation that the White House will have with Congress, but that's not the president's intention with the Great Healthcare Plan.
Lawmakers from both parties have continued to be divided over health care and have not agreed on the enhanced COVID-era Obamacare subsidies that Democrats have been fighting for. Despite the division, the Trump administration expects his plan to receive bipartisan support. Currently, however, the plan lacks clear language that would prevent taxpayer dollars from funding abortion. Pro-life groups will be working to protect taxpayers' funds from that. Jody?
Yes, we certainly will. Thank you for that, Sarah. I know in some other news, the tensions continue to rise in Minnesota, where protests against ICE agents, they are still taking place. And now, Sarah, President Trump seems to be threatening to send troops to Minneapolis. And of course, all this is coming after a surge in immigration agents already there in the city. What's the latest that you're hearing in that situation?
That's exactly right, Jody. President Trump is now threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act to deploy military forces in Minnesota. Confrontations between residents and federal officers have become increasingly tense following the shooting death of a woman by an ICE agent last week. And since then, anti-ICE protests have only spread further throughout other cities. The president's threat to deploy military forces, though, came shortly after an immigration officer shot a Venezuelan man who fled the scene in his vehicle. According to DHS, the man sped off, crashed his vehicle, and then ran away on foot. Then two other Venezuelan men came out of a nearby apartment with a snow shovel and a broom handle and began hitting the officer. DHS says the officer fired shots in self-defense. Now, both the Venezuelan man and the officer are in the hospital recovering. Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt called out Democratic leaders for escalating tensions between protesters and ICE agents.
These Democrat governors and mayors in not just Minnesota, but in states across the country are essentially, they've referred to ICE agents who, again, are brave men and women. And I would encourage everyone in this room, and I would encourage Governor Walz and other Democrats who are demeaning law enforcement to sit down and have a cup of coffee with an ICE agent or a Border Patrol agent. These are great, patriotic men and women who have families, who put on the uniform every day and are following our nation's immigration laws.
It's estimated there are close to 3,000 immigration agents in Minneapolis and across the state. As for the Insurrection Act, it has been used 30 times in U.S. history. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that the president alone can determine if the act's conditions have been met. Jody?
Thank you so much, Sarah. A lot happening in the news, and as always, we appreciate you keeping us up to speed and what's taking place. Sarah Holliday, thank you so much.